Welcome to Life is Good. I'm Heather McHugh, your ever-loving hostess, and guess who we have today? You'd never guess.
He rocks in the treetop all the day long, hopping and a bopping and a singing his song. All the little birds on Jaybird Street love to hear the robin go tweet, tweet, tweet. Rockin' Robin, tweet, tweet, rockin' Robin, tweet, tweet. Slow rockin' Robin, 'cause we really gonna rock tonight.
Dr. Alexander Ott. He's presently living in New York, and he's a scientist like you wouldn't believe, and he's making the world a better place. Every single incident that has happened to him, accident, terminal disease, flying through the windshield of a cab in New York, every single thing that has happened to Alex, he has put to good use in his work for the benefit of mankind. And that's only part of it. So let's go. Hi, Alex.
Hi, Heather. How are you today?
Well, I'm great now that I'm seeing you again. When was the last time we saw each other in person?
I don't know, on a flight.
And then the next morning I walked you to your gate.
JFK, JetBlue Terminal.
Yeah, but it was 10 years. It had to be 10 years ago.
Yeah, maybe it's pretty. I'd say 10 years. I think so. Last time you introduced me to a couple of other flight attendants that were flying on my cross-country flight that knew you, knew me through you for some reason. I didn't know that I told you about the cab accidents and all the other things.
You did,
or maybe did I ever write about it? Or
I've been watching some of your other interviews because your life is so vastly interesting that I did not want it to be a one-dimensional interview, because your life in itself is like a diamond. The fastest shine out in different directions. Yeah. And, well, just thank you so much for coming on. Your profession, you're a microbiologist and, so many other chemical...
molecular biology and biochemistry.
Yes, I did have that written down.
Amongst other things. I went to school for art, so I studied product design at Parsons at some point for 3 years. And designed some furniture and some lights. And then storyboarding for the film industry. Yeah, for movies, and that's how I ended up in Thailand, where I had one of the NDEs that we're talking about maybe today.
One of the incidents, yes, that led you to me in a very profound way.
Correct.
Yeah, we'll talk about that, but I'll let you take the lead on that one. Mostly what you've done, you were made famous universally because of your work with anti-hangover medication, which is
prevention.
Oh yes, prevention.
Yeah,
because
prevention.
You said, and this is something I've never heard, that hangovers are a disease.
Yeah, it's called basalgia. That's the clinical term for it.
One affects sleep, and one affects the nutrients in the body that are diminishing.
That's correct. When you metabolize alcohol, you metabolize it in pretty much two things that are important to talk about, which is the ethanol, that is the fun stuff. You get phone numbers, you dance, you lose inhibition, and then the acetaldehyde or acetaldehyde, which is 30 times more toxic than alcohol itself, and that roams through your body to deplete you of all nutrients that you have, amino acids, vitamins, minerals, and induces a couple of diseases. One of them is called the glutamine rebound, and the other one's called basalgia, which is the hangover. And both of them are preventable. They're not curable, because once you have it, you already underwent that carcinogenic process, because alcohol is cancer-causing, just like cigarettes. In fact, smoking and drinking to your body is the exact same thing.
I did not know that until I heard some of your interviews, because when you think of smoking, it's just taken for granted. When you think of drinking...
Well, it depends what you smoke, because smoking tobacco itself doesn't do that. Smoking cigarettes, which is laced with 680 chemicals, however, one of them, including formaldehyde and acetaldehyde as well, that is the main cancer causer, and that's also what's in alcohol. And you can make it worse, and that's what we also specialize in now, is to go into restaurants, nightclubs, and hotels and say, like, hey, 80% of your late checkouts are hangover-related. Would you like to save $20 million a year? Also to fix their menus, because there often are some adverse ingredients in there that confuse your central nervous system, or ingredients that both diuretic and harmful to your liver, and can go into liver disease even after one night of drinking.
Okay,
so there's some really dangerous things out there.
Pretend I'm a hotelier and you approach me.
Yeah.
What is my usual reaction? I don't want you in my restaurant. You're going to bother my customers. You're going to take away the joy that my customers have getting smashed every night, or the wrong foods. They only go out once a week, so if they eat this just once a week, it's not going to hurt them. What would you do to counter my negativity?
I would educate while entertain at the same time. That I said, hey, so certain spirits have been invented for specific purposes. Meaning gin, for instance, specifically for women.
That's a hormonal fix.
It was invented for female complaints. It's even on old gin bottles, on labels, liver problems, urinary tract infections, etc. But what I would tell the hotelier would be, you can have a full cash register and care about your customers, because you are the last legal drug dealer on the planet, and alcohol is #1 drug in America. It's deeply ingrained in the history of the United States with, three-way trade, the sugarcane trade with the Caribbean. Yeah. Every cowboy drank bottles of rum and whiskey. Was even safer than drinking water back then. Every celebrity has their own liquor brand. But nobody knows how dangerous and addictive it is, and how damaging it is to your body. So what I would tell him is hey, 90% of your drink menu is wrong. I can fix that for you, because there's a drink that has chamomile and rosemary. But you can't put them together, because it would be like taking cocaine and Valium at the same time. One of them is, someone that produces serotonin, the other one produces adrenaline. One of them is a stimulant, the other one is a depressant.
So you try and balance it out.
So I either take one ingredient out to replace it with something that tastes similar, or substitute it with something that, adds to the flavor and stability of the drink menu without interrupting the ego of the bartender who created this, because in truth, bartenders have no business making drink menus, because they're not chemists. And this is a very dangerous thing. They're bringing something to the customer. Like, let's say the espresso martini. They're both diuretics, alcohol and espresso. They're both metabolized by the liver. They both make you dehydrated 10 times faster. And if you add something else to it, it becomes more and more dangerous, specifically spices and herbs. There's a lot of nightlife out there that put people in anaphylaxis. Just 20% of all cocktail goers for after-hour spots that are really famous here in New York too, they have serious problems with medications too, because the bartender, has to ask a very personal question. If he serves you a grapefruit martini, he needs to know if you're on Valium or Xanax or benzos, because there's enzymes in there. The nootkatone and grapefruit that prevent the metabolizing of certain medications. And so if you drink a grapefruit martini while you're on Xanax, it's like taking 10 Xanaxes. So it's very dangerous. There's much more dangerous items out there. Rosemary, or herbs that, thin your blood, herbs that interact with medications, or even CBD. You're not allowed to have any alcohol if you're on CBD. A lot of people are on CBD because they think it's healthy for you, but it's the exact opposite. CBD has five.
What would the devastation be to your body if you were drinking while you were taking CBD?
Central nervous system issues, as well as neurological issues, and as well as organ failure, kidney and liver. Like CBD has 540 interactions with medications. It's a dangerous isolate.
There's a problem these days with late onset MS, multiple sclerosis, and ALS has always been an issue, but now they're starting at later ages. Do you think that something done in youth could actually be causative?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I specialize in the gut, which I've spiderwebbed 18,000 profiles together, 6 years for astronauts.
The astronaut aspect of your existence. You provide drinks and such things for astronauts while in outer space at the space station. So let's talk about that. That's amazing.
That started a long time ago.
Your backdrop is NASA, so this is great.
No, I got to keep some of the equipment. But I met a few astronauts when I created the beverage menus for a very famous restaurant and hotel chain called Buddha Bar in Paris. And Scott and Mark Kelly, Mark, who's now, senator, he and Scott and a woman named Lisa Novak, who was also an astronaut, they were sitting at a table, and one of the servers came over to me, and she knew that I was heavily, a big fan of space travel, and always wanted to get some commercial contracting with NASA, because I had some ideas for sensorial nutrition programs, because I work with a lot of plants that reverse a lot of issues they have in zero gravity, be it flavor enhancement or digestive issues or infections or any of these things. So I ran over there before she can even finish a sentence, and I introduced myself, and I gave Mark one of my favorite substances, which is a tiny little flower extract that makes your mouth tingle and salivate and gets rid of all biofilms. But they use it now to mimic effervescence on the International Space Station by putting it into tiny capsules. Because when they're in space, the water from your legs gets distributed throughout your whole body and gives you puffy face and pushes on your sinuses, and you cannot taste or smell your food or anything for that matter, which leads to very, very heavy interruptions in memory evoking family, home-cooked meals, their mom, experiences that you have stored with your USB stick here, because scent and smell and taste is your oldest sense. So, a lot of people don't really know how to work with it, including those triple PhDs that used to work for the Space Food Systems Lab. So Mark introduced me to them, and I sent them a package, and they invited me. And then I started consulting for them. And that's how the whole thing started. I tried to do this with other space companies, but I decided to stay on Earth after I failed my physical. I wanted to become an astronaut. I get sick in the cab. I get motion sick texting in a cab, so I can't be on a rocket pushing buttons. It's not yet. Plus, I'm not the age anymore. Age for astronauts is 18 to 38 now. I'm far over that because
How old are you, if I may ask?
You can't ask me that question.
You can ask me.
I'm not going to. I would ask you how young you are, but
I'm as young as I feel, and so I'm 4.
That's my answer. I'm in my 50s.
The reason I ask is I was trying to tell my, Todd, who is our executive director, and Kelby, who is my wonderful editor / the magic behind the show. I was trying to explain to you that I met you so many years ago, but you're ageless, timeless, rhythm and rhymeless.
No, that's not true.
And I said, he doesn't change at all. And whether you found the secret of youth or whether you just keep yourself healthy now after so many battles, physical and terrible physical battles.
It's diet. You are what you eat. Mm-hmm. That's a fact. As I said before, your gut determines the entire health, everything. 80% of anything is epigenetic. Even if you are prone to have some genetic issues from your parents, you can fight against that, which I did too. But I try to test my gut every 4 months to see how my microbes are. There's you can go to a commercial lab. There's a company called Ombre Lab, which is a very old microbial lab. They used to be called Thrive Inside. I use them. I guide my consultees to the website, or you can get it on Amazon. There's a QR code on the kit. It gets to you the next day. It's the best $200 you'll ever spend in your life, because you actually will know.
OMBRE, if I may ask?
OMBRELAB.com.
Okay, we'll put that right under your little...
I mean, I do have PCR machines here, but I don't have the time to operate them anymore. I'd rather, wait for that to come back. And once the results are in, all you need to do is give a rice corn size of poo from your toilet paper into a formaldehyde gel, swirl it around, and send it back to the lab, and then you get your online profile on your phone, and 2 weeks later or so you get a text saying your results are ready. But it's very important that you call me when you do that, because the algorithm and AI that this company uses is often incorrect when it comes to the overall health of you, and that needs to be spiderwebbed together, because this is really what you are looking at here. This is a list of microbes that are double-sided for 20 pages with serial number and species.
Okay.
So I can tell you exactly which one is overgrown, how many you have inside of you, how many are deficient. So just by looking at this profile, okay, go ahead, Heather.
Then you either nullify some by eliminating them with a certain food, or build them up by adding another food.
Well, you can starve them, correct? You can say, okay, here you're overgrown by 18,000%, which is a lot of people. Bacteroides doré or fragilis, which is the least favorite one.
Is it usually by sugar?
Because Not necessarily. It depends what sugars are, and it depends if you have the microbes to metabolize anything, including starches, potatoes, and pastas. And people think they might be healthy because they look to nutritionists to tell them online what is generally healthy. But the human body sadly doesn't work like this because we're all unique individual biospheres. And I can't say this is healthy for you and me at the same time. I can make some general things to say, like, go nuts on mushrooms, go nuts on berries, stay away from seed oils, don't eat animal protein every day. So this is things you can say generally, but you can have a six-pack, you can be a bodybuilder, you can be a marathon runner, you can look really great and have really amazing, looks, but you could be the sickest person in the world. Nobody would ever know unless you've looked into your gut. And out of the 18,000 profiles I've done in the last 12 years, I saw 18,000 sick people. So nobody is really healthy because it's extremely difficult to eat well. It's all about diversity. It's all about what your body in that lifestyle during that time needs. And it also depends largely on your sleep, on your iron levels, on your stress. Those are the three worst things you can do for bad bacteria as well. Sleep is even more important than food sometimes because you can go longer.
I get a lot of sleep. I get up at 3:30, 4:30.
That's great.
But I get to bed at 7:30, and it's like I love getting up at 3:30, 4:30 because I can't wait to start my day. But then by 7 o'clock, I'm no fun at all.
Yeah, all of my surfer friends do that, and now I'm a dad of 2 young kids, so
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's been a while. They're like 6 and 4 almost now, so they're giving me attitude already.
Really?
But they're growing up here. They get to know a lot of these things. They're not allowed to have any hand sanitizer in school because all of her, class buddies, they all have ruined hands and raw hands and achy hands and red hands. And it's because the teacher keeps giving them hand sanitizer every hour.
We have enough stuff in our own system to take care of that.
That kills your good stuff. Like I always show people this, where I show people what lives on your hand, and women have a lot more of that on their hand.
Nematodes?
So this is bacteria. So this is my daughter's hand in a petri dish, and this is a few days later. So as you see, you have 3,000 different families of bacteria living on your hand at any given time, even if you wash your hands. And as I said, for every cell you have in your body, you have 10 foreign cells with different DNA, and that's how you have to treat it. So hand sanitizer kills the good stuff. And the pH mantle that protects your skin causes dermatitis, anything else. So, including your diet, you can, it mirrors the gut-skin axis, the gut-brain axis. It's all about the gut. Without them, we wouldn't be alive. And a lot of people simply don't know that. They're very, germophobe, especially post-pandemic. And it's what lands us to this whole mask and vaccination thing, where people think that, putting a mask in front of their face will actually help them from a virus, which is pretty ridiculous.
You inhale all the garbage that you're exhaling.
Well, not only that, because the let's say, even if you have a really good mask, the whole of that mask is my lab, right? And the rhinovirus is the size of my 2 fists. So you might as well wear fishnet stockings in front of your face. Not only that, but 50% of all infections that you get infected with doesn't go through your mouth or nose, it comes through your eyes. So you would have to wear swimmer's goggles all day long in order to protect yourself from anything. But that's not the point, because you're not supposed to protect yourself from anything, even the bad stuff. It's all about resilience. 80% of all the world population are unvaccinated.
Yeah. Well, one thing I believe in is that if you expose yourself to a lot of stuff, you're better off. And
yes, correct.
They told us when we first became flight attendants, you'll be sick for the first year, but after that, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
And so we were all sick for the first year, on and off. I wasn't sick very much, but I got food poisoning 4 times massively, until I started bringing all my own food, which I prefer. And everybody got so sick the first year. And I thought, well, this is good because we're being exposed to things and we're kind of self-immunizing. And
well, every day on this planet, you meet 1,000 new viruses you've never met before. And people just simply don't know that, because if you could actually see what lives inside of us, what's on our eyes, in our lungs, on our skin, you'd be so freaked out. You'd be disgusted by yourself.
I know. I saw
you're more alien than human. So.
David Suzuki did a great thing for Nova once, and it was called what were on his children's eyelids when they woke up, and it was nematodes. And he, of course, I don't know whether he used an electron microscope, but he used a pretty strong microscope, so you could actually see them crawling around. I went, oh! So the first thing I do every morning, cold water, and just not a good feeling to have something crawling around on you, but they all do their own little job.
Yeah, it's like what my grandma said. Back in the day, your sandwich falls on the floor, you brushed it off and you ate it. And as it falls into poo, which brings us to the ombre topic again. Almost 85% of what you see in the toilet every day is not old food. That big snake that comes out of you is 80% bacteria. So taking even a tiny scoop of that, it's trillions of bacteria. And that's fascinating because it tells you a lot about your health. It tells you your metabolism, your mental health, your heart, liver. You're never alone.
You're never alone.
They've been there long before us. They're grown in substrate of fungi, and that's what the happy is.
You do some really good work with fungi. So fungus.
Not too much with fungus. I used to work with a guy named Paul Stamets. He did his movie and had his Netflix shows and whatnot. A brilliant guy. I've worked with a lot of mycologists in a way. Also, when working with NASA, because they have to do pretty good housekeeping up there. Because in zero gravity, spores go everywhere. They go in every direction, and they go behind those plastic and metal.
Panels.
Like coverings of the cabin, and sometimes once a week or so they have to take them all out and clean because there's mushrooms growing this size behind there, and it's very dangerous to have that because you have to keep that environment clean because you're inside this little biosphere and you can't get out. You can't just like open up a window and air it all out. Like us, they smell a lot of weird smells there. Mainly there.
They can't smell unless they use your products because.
You get used to it. They still throw up 5, 6, 7 times a day because their liquids don't stay where they should. Here in 1G, we grow up in a force field where all of our liquids stay down where they belong, but in zero gravity, everything goes everywhere. And that's why they're not allowed to have carbonated beverages. They're craving carbonation because the reason we have bubbles in drinks is flavor enhancement, and they're craving these bubbles. But we give them a flower that looks like this. This is the dried version of it. It's called Acamella oleracea.
Is that from South America?
This is from the Pará region in Brazil. Yeah, and it's called jambu over there. They use the leaves for salads because they have this little tiny tingle that enhances flavor. So of all the other ingredients that are in your salad, they call it the toothache plant or the buzz button. It gets rid of all biofilms. I'm chewing on a few flowers every day because it's extremely healthy for your teeth and gum health, for pathogenic bacteria. It's called Acamella, Acmella. And you can grow them yourself really easily here in the summer outdoors and then in the winter indoors, but they don't grow as fast because it's an ornamental plant from the Amazon. So it needs a lot of sun, a lot of humidity.
Well, in my house. I live in a hobbit house. It's so dark. Oh, well. But no, Acmella, how do you spell that slowly, please?
Acmella. Okay, and oleracea. There's different species from it. Some of them have a red dot on the top. It's a bright yellow flower. It grows very fast. It's an ornamental plant. It's an antifungal, antimicrobial, a parasitical. It's immunomodulatory. It's a cure for stuttering, by the way.
A cure for stuttering?
Yeah, for a long, long time now. And it's been used for the last 45 years as injections as a cure for HIV, cancer, and malaria.
Where is it used here? Is it used in this country for them?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, great. Because I know a lot of the things that...
The compound in there is called spilanthol. And it's an alkamalite, and it has insane medicinal properties. It's also transdermal, so it's in a lot of cosmetic products out there. Not enough to make a difference. Cosmetic companies usually put fairy dust formulas, we call them, into their products, which are mostly emollients, but not enough of the functional ingredients. And just to say they have that in there to make it magical on the label, they add a tiny bit to it, but it is a transdermal Botox, if you will. You don't need to inject it in order to prevent wrinkles. Literally,
it's a little late for me.
No, it's not true. It pulls collagen closer to the skin. You can use it at any age.
How do you prepare something like that?
You either extract it or you pulverize it, put it into like a shea butter or an oil. The best thing is to put it into an oil, like a jojoba or coconut, and let it infuse for a couple of weeks, vacuum filter it, and then pretty much put it on your skin.
I use Vaseline now. Is that wrong?
No, that's wrong. You shouldn't do that.
I'm sorry. If I fall down, I'll slide right out the door.
I'll send you a care package with all the good goodies, including, everything you need for everyday use.
Well, you've been lucky because you were raised by your mother, who's a nutritionist. Your father's a musician, and
my father was a jazz musician and an architect. Yeah, he passed away 6 years ago.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And my mom used to own a fitness center, but knew a lot about nutrition. But my grandmother really was the one raising me, teaching me about botany and cooking and baking.
Well, you and I had the same sort of upbringing then, because I would spend months at a time with my grandparents living. They retired. My grandfather was raised on a dairy farm.
Yeah.
Went into industry, did very well, retired, and came back to the eastern townships of Quebec and became a vegetable farmer. And I was the beneficiary of his knowledge. However, I was really not paying attention. We'd go out into the woods. My mother was an invalid, and we'd go out into the woods, and my grandfather would say, "Well, you hold the bag and I'll fill it up." And we would go through, and he would go to the base of different trees and to different parts of the forest, to different springs, to different brooks, and into different mud places. And he would pick out different things, and he would say, "This will help your mother. It will make her lips feel better when they're dry. This will help your mother. This will help this. This will help that." And I'd walk home, and I'd be 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 years old, carrying these bags full of things for my mom, who was hospitalized 6 months a year. And the medical profession, you and I will agree on this, the medical profession destroyed my mother.
Yeah, don't get me started.
Don't get me started. And the FDA now has put the kibosh and forbidden certain elements of your inventions to be allowed here. They've turned really natural products into what they call drugs for, of course, the markup they can have on them. Everything's about money and control. And what is your opinion on that, if I may ask?
Well, war and illness are the biggest profits. There's two industries, one that makes you sick and the other one that profits from your illness. I work with a lot of first responders that are in sanctuaries in Austin, Texas as well. So I work with a lot of substances that are not completely legal here. I have, obviously I have certificates and things to work with them to make sublinguals and transdermals and, even supplements for pharma and big pharma sometimes. So I really hate, big pharma. Sometimes I work with them. They're quite fascinated by what I do, but there's a lot of MDs out there. And in fact, there's a lot of people, most people on the planet, they've been so white-coated that they just look at single systems health. If something hurts here, they only look here. And they give you something for it. What we do is we reverse. We can reverse allergies and Parkinson's and autism and autoimmune diseases and skin conditions within weeks.
It doesn't sell. They can't profit from it. So they're
all about profiting from the ill in this country. You have the food industry that makes us sick, and we have pharma that makes money off of us being sick. And they need to keep us on that leash, otherwise they wouldn't have money.
How do we counter that?
We can't counter it except word of mouth and curing and healing, which we can't do because it's frowned upon.
One by one person to one person to one person. If people watch this show, ladies and gentlemen, Alex Ott is speaking truth here. If any of you out there are on all sorts of medication, good for you, but there are alternatives that do exist.
Non-invasive, non-habit forming with no tolerance buildup, neuroprotective even, because most of the meds that are out there destroy your brain cells, get you hooked for life, recalibrate your entire nervous system, and eventually will kill you through the side effects. Yeah.
I want to live to be 140. That's just the way
you can. People that become that age are probably alive right now without even knowing it. I mean, we've made some really amazing inventions. PCR tech was one of them. Before that, we were completely in the dark. It's just we would have to grow bacteria in a petri dish and look under a microscope and then see what they do and how they can be destroyed or what they do and their metabolism, what they produce and such. But before the end of the 1990s, before they invented this amazing technology of genetically seeing all the microbes that are in our gut. 80% of our gut biota couldn't be grown in a petri dish because they can't be exposed to air. So that's a major problem. So now, since the late 90s, we have that tech. What I just showed you, that piece of paper, that's what you pay for, is a test, a computer test. And now we know. So we know just by looking at this microbial sheet, I can see, without even knowing you, that you're autistic, that you have Parkinson's, that you have colon cancer, that you have autoimmune disease, even without knowing you. And that's what we do as a consult. Yeah, so we're not creating service, we're giving you wisdom. We spiderweb everything together. We even talk to your doctor, we even talk to your oncologist to say, listen to me for 5 minutes to what I have to say because you're killing your patient right now. And then they say, who are you? I don't know about you. There's nothing that's been published. I'm like, what I'm talking about has been published a long time ago, but it was taken off the internet. And even if you ask AI, if it's censored by pharma, it will tell you, yes, I am censored by pharma, by the people who created me, by the people who profit from all of this. And then if that's pretty much a sad thing.
You, at one point, were interfaced with an AI machine or person, a robot, and you said they got 90% of everything right, but we as humans get 99%. But your AI individual was writing poetry and scared the heck out of you until you found that you were 9% more aware.
Yeah, there's nuances, human nuances that can't be programmed into a system yet. There's a lot of people who are big fans. Most of my friends, in fact, they have started AI businesses. They have had their entire company taken over by AI, including marketing, including sales, including decision-making, which I think is just complete idiocy.
So do I.
Because if something happens, not only that, but it just starts with pseudoscience. Like if you ask AI, which mushroom can cure cancer? AI would tell you there's no such thing as a cure for cancer. Please ask your local physician, for help. So your local physician goes, 8 years of med school, has about an hour of nutritional training, knows nothing about the gut because they make sure that nobody learns how to heal or cure. And he only has 5 minutes to get you out of his office and prescribe you something from his prescription pad for a symptom that could be caused by anything, by 3,000 diseases. That's why 4 million people die each year because of doctors. So, 8 million other people eat themselves to death because they're addicted to salt, fat, and sugar. And that's where I sort of come in. I have the plans to unplug you from this hedonic craving, and I can show you how I can reverse your skin conditions or your Parkinson's or your autism.
You said that you also work with soldiers on addiction and various other people who...
Bank survivors, soldiers, raid victims, first responders, ambulance drivers, nurses. Most of them I work with now because they have the most unhealthiest lifestyle, specifically night nurses. They have probably the biggest problems with their gut.
I've known some night nurses, and without exception, obesity is a big thing. And
60% now.
And I think it's because of the rhythm of sleep. If you're not sleeping well, and if you're working a night shift, your body craves.
Yeah, and people take sleep aids, which are even worse because they cannot. Well, if you take a little benzo to help you sleep, or if you smoke weed, or if you take Ambien, any of those things, you might sleep, but your body doesn't regenerate while you're doing it because you need natural sleep. When you go to sleep at night, your body actually wakes up and uses 400 different enzymatic processes to regenerate eyesight, skin cells, ligaments, get the waste products out of your brain and harmful toxins. So it has to go from stage 1 to stage 2 to stage 3 to stage 4 to stage 5. If you're on Ambien or if you're on Xanax, you go straight from stage 1 to stage 5 while skipping the regenerative processes. So you wake up the next morning 10 times as old as the day before without regenerating anything. You're sluggish, you're lazy, you have no, nothing going on there. So and that's what that does. Natural sleep is more important than food because that's what it does. You can go longer without food than you can go without sleep. And it's very, very difficult to explain to people what happens with their own body because in general, people don't know about their biology. They don't know how their human body works. And they should. You should be taught in school how to repair yourself. how to cure things, how to heal things, how to even stitch yourself up. In Europe, where I went to school, we had a nutrition class in school. Here in America, you guys got rid of home. You got rid of home ec 20 years ago.
Oh, I got kicked out of home ec. I got kicked out of home ec in 8th grade. I'd been cooking.
Yeah, I mean, in 4th grade, we were given like, this is healthy, this is unhealthy. Go to McDonald's if you need to once a month, maybe.
I've never eaten at McDonald's. I've never eaten. I don't eat that stuff. And,
as a flavor chemist, I must say they have a couple of flavor profiles that are, highly addictive, like the Big Mac or the McRib or, any of those sauces. They're packed with salt, fat, and sugar, and that's all you need to make an addictive snack, because those 3 substances are 11 times more addictive to your medial forebrain bundle, your pleasure circuitry in your brain, than heroin or cocaine.
If I had a salt lick on my table, the salt lick that we put out with the cows and like that, my tongue would be around that thing all day.
It's the biggest drug. It's the most dangerous drug in the world.
Really?
It's salt. Yeah.
Oh, God. Alex, you shouldn't have told me that. How am I going to kill the flavor of my cooking? Anyway,
there's substitutes.
I want to get onto the subject before we have to say goodbye, because what I loved hearing about what you do is something I can do on a plane, a mood creation. You ask people to fill out a form with a questionnaire.
Correct.
And then they come together about a month later, and you have created bubbles with fog in them, and each person has their own individual bubble.
You mean my events?
Yes, your events. Yeah. And they don't do anything, and then they ingest the fog from their bubble, and they start to cry because you've taken them back to their youth. You've taken them back to their childhood.
Yeah.
And you've created, and then they stand around and talk for 2 hours. And on a plane, I could see an entire 159 bunch of people stressed out, angry, sad, every bad emotion you could possibly get. And all they'd have to do is watch the flight attendants listen, talk, embrace, and smile, and it would de-escalate all the mood. And then with the flight attendant show and how sincere we were about loving these people, we would see an angry plane turn into one that was completely mellow and genuinely liking one another. It was magic, and I saw that almost every day.
Yeah.
And we could do that just by changing their perception of humanity, by being ourselves.
Yes, that's true.
And you can do this with that fog based on what their original requests were. For their
empathy. We took it even a little bit further. For, as I said, scent and smell is our oldest sense. We know how to, that smoke means danger, to run away from it, because it's ingrained in our brain even before we're born already. So this is a USB stick with like millions and hundreds of millions of flavors connected to certain actions. And, if you know about which sense, and this is where it gets universal. Every country has their own little scent, memory evoking. Like, let's say here in America, if I wanted to create a scent that evokes memories from high school, I would probably go with peanut butter and jelly, because by the time you guys finish high school, you finished 5,600 PB&J sandwiches, which is almost a scientific fact for every American. But you couldn't do that in Japan, because I grew up with green tea and red bean, and natto. So you have to know your demographic. However, it's true that every single culture, if they smell rosemary, they produce noradrenaline. They concentrate better. In fact, if you have an office, let's say Condé Nast, and you have all these cubicles with people working on their computers, and they get all too tired and have their 2 p.m. crash, you diffuse rosemary and citrus scent in the air, they will concentrate and produce 25% more work. If you do that with lavender and chamomile, it produces serotonin. It makes you happy, it calms you down, and makes you, sort of like content. Say like, hey, I'm great. If you know that about these flavors and scents, I'm a perfumer as well. You can create products that don't only work on, observable benefit by ingestion or, getting into your in your system that way, but also by retroolfaction. So we created a gumdrop, almost like a jawbreaker, that is a little smaller, that has over like 24 different layers of you have to fill out a questionnaire before we create that for you. But you start at the present flavor of whatever happened last week to you. And then once you suck this down more and get smaller and smaller, you hit every layer and to go back into your entire childhood. We try to create this for Alzheimer patients to ask their relatives to basically fill out a questionnaire about what you know about your grandmother or your grandfather. And then, as you know, psilocybin is one of the substances I work with as well, creates new brain cells, right? Everybody should take this on a daily basis if it wasn't illegal. In most states, it's not legal, no.
Oh, crap.
In fact, psilocybin is in every mushroom. People don't know that either. But the ones that contain a lot of it, they're called, cubensis. And basically, it's pretty much you eat a couple of those and you can communicate with other living organisms like plants and animals. And this is what it does. But if you take this on a daily basis, you will have a better brain. You will have better neural connections. You will have better speed. Cognitive improvement.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Where can we get this?
I can't tell you where to get that. Maybe you can call me after this phone call, and I can guide you in the right direction. But I don't want the cops.
Nothing in writing. But
nothing in writing. But yeah, this is basically if you combine a 3-flavor scent, you can encode your relatives by giving them a microdose to get their memories back, even if they have long lost your name.
That would be so beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Your mission in life is to restore full spectrum of lifeness to every human being.
Well, that's one of the missions, especially with the past company I worked with, which was an empathogenic supplement. But yes, I think it's all about empathy. There's not enough out there. Actually, there's none out there. There's actually a massive lack of empathy.
Well, you're talking about AI diminishing our capabilities and taking away the pathway to communication.
Not only that, but it takes away your brain. It lets someone else think for you, which is extremely dangerous. So if you go out of Wi-Fi and you don't have that tool anymore, your entire company will go down. And this is not something that I can rely on. I mean, I like AI by writing certain things, doing research that would normally take days. AI can pull that up for me within like 30 seconds. But again, AI is just as good as the person who programmed it. I'm working with a lot of people right now, specifically the ones in healthcare and biology, that are programming completely different AIs that are not censored by pharma. And that's when it gets really interesting.
Thank you. But I before the internet, I didn't have a TV for years because I don't appreciate that. And when COVID came along, I devolved. I became a fan of YouTube. I mean, I don't play it and stop doing what I'm doing, but before where I used to pick up a book, I can now have Audible. I can now listen to a book on tape. It's taken away the tangible in my life. And that's something I'm missing. I don't feel like I'm missing it enough to go back to it because I've become dependent upon something I thought I would never even invite into my life. But it does take away the loneliness during isolation. Even though I'm a hermit and I'm not an extrovert, I did need the noise. I did need the voice. I did need the words. And so I haven't gone back to pre-COVID use of picking up a good book, sitting down to read, or anything like that. I put everything on when I'm in my art studio. I have that going. And that's not as involved, it's not as addictive or as diminishing as a total AI existence. But you say that the oneness that we once possessed, we've lost our connection. We're digitized to such a degree that losing a connection with the universe. And that's a progressive.
We've lost that a long time ago. We don't look up anymore. As soon as we built skyscrapers, we lost the sky. So for me, I'm an astronomer. I work with astronauts where I look into their eyes when they say something. They almost have tears in their eyes because they had epiphanies that they think you can just have by leaving this planet, looking down upon it from a different, view. But I realize working with herbs and plants that they can get you into certain frequencies, and obviously not just the hallucinogenic ones, but also the sacred ones that are also illegal just by growing, which is ridiculous.
I have a friend who wants to do ayahuasca.
That can let you dip into the cosmic ether to get all these answers. I mean, best example, and I don't usually ask people to watch television shows or whatnot, and especially, things that kind of take away from, interacting with other human beings. I love movies here and there, but there's a couple of amazing documentaries. One of them is on Netflix, I believe. It's called The Lost Children. And it's about the first time the military in Colombia, in the Colombian rainforest, has ever worked with the indigenous people in the Colombian rainforest, and they hate each other, to find 3 lost children after a plane crash, where their mother and the pilot died in an uncharted territory of the rainforest, and they survived for over a month. And the reason they found them was because the military and the indigenous had one mutual thought together, is to fly in orally active ayahuasca tea, to drink it in order to let, the grandmother make the decision to show them where the children were hidden. And after they drank their tea, they found the children immediately after.
Yeah.
It's a great movie to watch. It'll bring tears.
I will watch it. I will watch it because I also believe in that. The opening up of the soul and the mind.
Yeah. I mean, we have so many more senses that we've lost since ancient times, including gravity, including dipping into cosmic ether, afterlife, any of this stuff. You talk about anti-aging or non-aging. It is a circle of life that is necessary for adaptation. We wouldn't have adapted or get any adaptive traits if we hadn't died.
Key to survival.
There's people out there, I don't want to mention any names, who think like, don't die and come to my thing and I tell you how to, become 100 million years old. Those are people generalizing health. You can live forever without being in your physical body.
I know.
And losing people, and if you've ever held people that are dying, which I have, and I've seen a lot of people, my plane crash, and my dad, I held his hand when he took his last breath. I knew that there was a little more to just, us lingering in this biological body that has been decaying. And I didn't feel anything for that body after, he took his last breath, where I said, like, now I'm enlightened in that way. But also,
I have to ask you, I'm sorry to interrupt, because I've had many, many experiences with spirits and with soul knowing. And I've told people it's because I grew up quite often alone and running through the woods by myself, where I could feel things and I didn't develop walls around me. There was no acrylic shield protecting me from anything. Nature just came in. And so I absolutely believe in the soul's continuation because I've had so many experiences. And I'm really glad I have.
Yeah.
Some people will say that it's not possible, but you and I both know that eternity is totally possible. And to live 140 years in this body is totally unnecessary.
You and I were in the chemical biological realm. I've worked with people who are more in the light, because we are, scientifically speaking, we are made of light. Yep. We're not made out of solid particles. We're made of light. And even wrapping your head around it, like you said before, you can go crazy, not only philosophically speaking, quantum physics. Shorter said too, but
physics. Maybe if we talk again, we'll talk Freehoff Capra, quantum physics, because that's one of my favorite things. Because it makes sense to me. It all makes complete sense to me. Yeah,
we're not really humans that are spiritual. We're spirits that are occupying a human body, and we're getting that experience from that. And that's what people have to understand. I mean, I work with a lot of Indian people who embalm their own, after they die. They have a completely different sort of sense of death. Same with Egyptian people. All of our oldest ancestors, they had far more wisdom and knowledge that they continued to talk to their young about in a never-ending chain. And we don't do that anymore. We think we're so smart with our technology.
I do that every night.
And talking about near death, we haven't talked about the accidents that you mentioned earlier. I don't know if you want me to touch upon that.
I'd let you take the lead on that. You're a professional surfer.
I used to be, or tried to be. In fact, today, the most famous surfer on the entire planet texted me, and I still haven't spoken to him, but I used to be in the ocean a lot, and then after I moved to the big city here in New York. Obviously, that all stopped, especially after family. Most of my friends are still living in Hawaii or in California. They're in the water every day. Like, they get up at 3 a.m, go into their hyperbaric oxygen chamber in the red light room, inhale their methylene blue, and then hop in the water. They're pretty much the healthiest people I know on the planet. People in the ocean, because it's an amazing energy.
You and I have a lot of parallels that way. I was a professional water skier in the Caribbean, and a commercial fishing lady in the Atlantic.
So many things I don't know about you.
Yeah, What's to know? All I can say is, but to get back to what we were talking about as far as your accidents go and how we met, you were given many accidents that could have taken your life. You've had terminal cancer. You've had double renal failure thanks to malaria. You've had all of these terrible. You got through a cab window in New York. I mean, traffic will kill you. But
I'm kind of challenged when it comes to transportation methods. Like it's I'm not happy flying. I have to do that, but again, I've walked through it. I used to be on medication for a while. I can say that, and then I substituted it with an empathogenic plant that is 12 times as potent as a prescription med. So it's called Sciletium tortuosum, or short kana. It's a South African succulent flower. Yeah, a really beautiful flower.
Is it legal here?
It doesn't grow here. It only grows around the Cape regions.
And you've lived in Africa. You used to play with lions.
In East Africa, correct. I was in Kenya for a decade, and
Were you born in Nairobi?
No, I was born in Germany, but I lived in Malindi, which is right on the ocean.
Yeah, and I used to be a massage therapist for the Kenyan running team when they came to this country.
What haven't you done? So my dad, when I was like 12 years old, before we left, he gave me a rifle and he put me under an umbrella tree, and he said, "Here, build a boma," which is a sort of a bush fence with like thorny bushes around this tree, so the lions won't eat you tonight. And I was in my teens, so I was extremely terrified. But it showed me a lot to go through that fear, to sort of embrace that fear, and that's what this plant does when I take it before flying, because it activates every receptor. And besides me using it solely for a daily navigator for depression, anxiety, and fear, which everybody should take, you can unplug anybody from SSRIs, MAO inhibitors, benzos, anything from amphetamine, salt, fat, sugar, alcohol, gambling. In fact, it's been used clinically for that already for the last 40 years. So these are the two products that I created. It's called Ka. Ka meaning life force. And these are some
exclamation mark?
These are some Ka. It's not an exclamation mark. It's actually a phonetic sound from the Khoi people, from the Bushmen in South Africa, which is a clicking sound. It's called Ka. This is the tincture that is a non-alcoholic tincture that we also have invented. This is
Did you take that before you met me?
No, actually, we haven't launched yet. Yeah, we launched this about 6 years ago. 3 years on Amazon now. It's been changing hundreds and thousands of lives, and especially those for people who are exposed to a lot of fear. But what it mainly does is, and that's where I sort of want to land the plane, is it creates empathy. Extreme empathy and heart opening and a grounded energy, not a stimulant one, by creating a paradigm shift. And that's why I wanted to create it, is to shift this world from the patriarchal military into the divine feminine, because nothing ever good comes out of what we're doing right now.
No, nothing. And I'll tell you something. I feel unconditional love for everybody when I meet them, and it usually maintains that. I've
seen that.
Love them. And when you and I met, I loved you. A very heart love. Still do. And it was a beautiful feeling. And if you want to tell people how we met, go ahead.
You've changed a lot in my life when it comes to flying. I remember you pushing me against the wall first to kind of like push all the bad energy out of my chest. And then you sat across from me, which was a big game changer, because no flight attendant has ever done that with me, because people just don't simply care. They're surrounded by some rude people. Some people don't really care that they're there. I always talk to the pilots. I always talk to the staff. I want to know who's flying the plane. And knowing of JetBlue, which was like a fresh airline when I started, I knew it had the best pilots because they were flying military planes before they started for JetBlue.
Yeah,
so they knew, they knew about flying. And the pay was pretty good too. And then I knew, people from American or United that were also a bus driver on the side or had other jobs on the side, which, terrified me. So I always stuck to the airline. And when I met you and you introduced me to other people, like Tina, I think you introduced me to Tina Say, that sometimes I went on a flight and I knew people, and that was new for me, where I felt really comfortable. And then sometimes I was alone. I always flew alone. where I was completely terrified when the pilot already announced severe turbulence. Where I said, I need to get out of this flight. But what might supplement, so I call it offering, I call it supplement. It's a new invention. Contains this amazing plant that literally plays biojazz with your receptors and calibrates you back to factory settings, gets rid of hedonic cravings and addictions, anything within literally minutes. Without withdrawal symptoms.
And it's a chew, and you
chew it into smaller pieces. It's a new substance. I've invented a new substance that's purely plant-based, made out of a few plants like snow lotus, lavender, mint, and acacia, to dissolve. It's water soluble, so it doesn't go through your digestive tract. It passes first pass metabolism. It gets absorbed in your oral mucosa and goes straight into your brain, and that's why you feel it after like a minute already. And it stays with you for 24 hours or even longer. It's a cumulative effect. You can take it every day. You can give it to pregnant and nursing moms. You can give it to kids even in small doses for concentration, creativity. You can give it to bodybuilders and marathon runners for endurance. But what it should be used for is as an everyday navigator through stress, anxiety, and depression, which is our biggest or most diagnosed illness in the world right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Alex, I'm so glad you survived that original plane
Me
crash.
too. I got something for you actually to look at.
Something for me?
I found an old picture frame with my old ticket.
Oh, yes, my gosh. Oh,
yeah, there I am.
That was the crash.
That was the crash.
101 people died, and a lot of people,
45
who
survived.
live and have never had any bumps in the road are not contributing to society in any way.
Well, they're drugged out right now.
Yeah, but some people who have had everything taken away from them and survived, they realize that the reason they're surviving is to help mankind. And
that's what I like to believe.
That would define you, my love. And I do love you. And I hope you and your family, your little ones who I've never met, your wife who I've never met, come and see me in Vermont sometime.
We will.
There would always be room for you at Dunrovin. I'll move up into the attic and give you the main house, which is 960 square feet of warmth.
Yeah, I bet.
In the city, but in the forest, living on Scott's Cove, which is a swamp, but very interesting with great wildlife, beavers, and I saw a moose there last year, and we've got all kinds of little furry animals and deer, and I just love it. And it's attached to a 32-mile-long lake, Lake Memphremagog,
wow.
which is 3 miles in the United States and the rest of it in Canada. And I grew up on that lake as a child and from the age of 8 to 21. And all I can say is you'd be so welcome with your family.
I will make it one day.
I would love that.
Promise.
Alex Ott, Dr. Alexander Ott, one of the most
Just Alex.
Okay, just Alex.
Leave the doctors out. Who cares?
Well, whatever. I'm very glad to know you, and I hope we stay in touch.
Likewise, Heather.
And thank you all for watching Life is Good. Thank you, Alex, for being on
Much
the show.
love and light. Thank you, Heather.
I love you. And thank you very much for watching, everybody. We'll see you next week.